Red Bull had the fastest man, a real shot at pole, and one final chance to get everything right. Then, in the most important minutes of qualifying, their plan collapsed. Max Verstappen was not beaten by a lack of speed. He was beaten by timing, pressure, and a decision that left no room for recovery. One choice in the third qualifying session changed the entire fight for pole, and the most damaging detail was not what happened on the track. It was what Red Bull failed to predict before Verstappen began his final attack. Because when the margins are this small, a few seconds can decide everything. Pole position, track advantage, even the shape of the race itself. And once you understand what Red Bull was trying to do, the panic inside that final session suddenly makes perfect sense. Subscribe to the channel. To understand how Red Bull reached that moment, you have to understand what the third qualifying session really is. It is not simply another round. It is the point where every mistake becomes permanent. In the first qualifying session, a driver can recover. In the second, there is still another chance. But in the third, the pressure changes. The track is faster, the margins are smaller, and every team is trying to release its car at exactly the right second. Not too early, not too late, because the circuit keeps improving as more rubber goes down. That means the final cars on track can often find the best conditions. But waiting comes with a danger. Traffic builds. Yellow flags become a threat. And one small delay in the garage can destroy the entire plan. That is where Red Bull's problem began. The team was not only trying to give Verstappen a fast car, they were trying to give him the perfect piece of track. Think of it like joining the fastest checkout line in a crowded supermarket. The shortest line can suddenly stop moving. The longer line can clear first. And by the time you realize you chose badly, there is no time to switch. That is exactly what makes a final qualifying run so dangerous. Red Bull had to judge the traffic, the track evolution, the tire preparation, and the clock at the same time. Each detail looked manageable on its own. Together, they created a trap. And Verstappen's position made that trap even more complicated. When a driver is expected to fight for pole, the team cannot simply send him out whenever there is space. The tires need to be ready. The battery needs to be prepared. The gap to the car ahead must be large enough. And the driver must cross the line before the session ends. Miss one of those things, and the lap is already compromised before the first corner. But here is what most people miss. The danger does not begin when the driver starts the flying lap. It begins much earlier. It begins when the car leaves the garage. From that moment, every second matters. The out lap must be fast enough to build tire temperature, but not so fast that the tires overheat. The driver must create space, but not lose so much time that the clock becomes the enemy. And in that final run, the clock was about to become Red Bull's biggest threat. Because once Verstappen was committed to the plan, there was no simple way to reset it. No extra attempt, no second chance. Just one lap, one narrow window, and a strategy that was beginning to close around him. At first, it may have looked controlled. Red Bull has handled pressure like this many times before. Verstappen has delivered extraordinary laps in moments where other drivers would hesitate. But confidence can be dangerous when the situation changes faster than expected. The team may trust the driver may trust the team, yet the stopwatch trusts nobody. And as the final seconds disappeared, Red Bull's plan stopped being about finding the perfect lap. It became a fight to reach the line at all. That is the first key to what happened. This was not simply a driver searching for more speed. It was a team gambling that every moving part would line up at exactly the right moment. The traffic, the tires, the gap, the timing, everything had to work. And when one part began to fail, the entire strategy started to unravel. But the real damage was still hidden. Because even if Verstappen reached the line, he still needed the tires in the right condition, the track in front of him, and enough confidence to attack from the very first corner. That sounds like a small detail. It is not. A qualifying lap is like running across ice at full speed. The driver cannot ease into it. He has to trust the grip immediately. If the tires are not ready, the lap is lost. If they are too hot, the lap can disappear just as quickly. And that is why Red Bull's decision in the garage mattered so much. The team was not just choosing when Verstappen would drive. They were choosing the exact conditions he would have to survive. By the time he reached the final run, the pressure was no longer building. It was already there. And the next part of the story explains why Red Bull's strategy, which may have looked aggressive, suddenly became one of the most dangerous decisions of the entire qualifying session. And this is where the entire plan became much more fragile. Red Bull were not just managing one lap. They were managing a chain reaction. The moment Verstappen left the garage, every decision affected the next one. The speed of the outlap affected the tires. The traffic affected the gap. The gap affected the timing. And the timing affected whether the final lap could even begin. That is the hidden danger of a qualifying strategy. It can look calm from the outside. Inside the garage, it can be falling apart second by second because the team does not control everything. They cannot control when another driver slows down. They cannot control whether a car ahead creates traffic. They cannot control whether the track suddenly becomes crowded in the final sector. They cannot control whether a yellow flag appears at the worst possible moment. And when the entire plan depends on one final attempt, every one of those risks becomes larger, much larger. Imagine trying to catch the last train of the night. You know exactly when it leaves. You know the route to the station. You believe you have enough time. Then one traffic light stays red. One car blocks the road. One person moves too slowly in front of you. None of those delays feels disastrous alone. But together, they decide whether the doors close before you arrive. That was the danger Red Bull had created. They had left themselves with almost no safety margin. And that matters because a great Formula One team does not only search for the fastest possible outcome, it also protects itself from the worst possible one. That is the balance. Speed against security. Risk against control. The perfect track position against the possibility of having no useful final lap at all. Red Bull appear to be chasing the maximum reward. But the maximum reward usually comes with a maximum exposure. And this is where the strategy becomes uncomfortable. Because Verstappen is often the driver team's trust in impossible moments. He can produce speed with little preparation. He can find confidence when the pressure is highest. He can attack a corner while the entire session seems to be collapsing around him. That reputation can become an advantage, but it can also tempt a team into believing there will always be one more rescue, one more extraordinary lap, one more moment where the driver fixes a problem. And even Verstappen cannot recover time that disappears before the lap begins. That is the cruel part. A driver can correct oversteer. He can brake later. He can take more speed through a corner. He can risk everything in the final sector, but he cannot drive backward through the clock. Once those seconds are gone, they are gone. And Red Bull's problem was beginning to move beyond performance. It was becoming a question of control. Who was controlling the final run? Was the team controlling the timing? Was the traffic controlling the team? Or was the session itself now forcing Red Bull into decisions they never wanted to make? That question is important because panic in Formula One rarely looks like shouting. Sometimes panic looks quiet. A rushed tire blanket removal. A hurried release from the garage. A driver being told to push harder on the outlap. A gap that suddenly disappears. A plan that changes without enough time to properly rebuild it. From the outside, the car still moves. The mechanics still stand in position. The engineers still speak in controlled voices. But underneath that control, the strategy can already be breaking. And Verstappen would have felt the pressure immediately. Drivers know when a lap preparation is clean. They also know when something feels wrong. The steering may feel normal. The engine may sound normal. The car may look completely stable. But the driver can sense the urgency. He can see the traffic ahead. He can hear the instructions becoming sharper. He can watch the timing line on the steering wheel. And he knows there is no room left for anything unexpected. That changes a lap before it even begins. Because a qualifying lap is not only physical, it is psychological. The driver needs a clear mind. He needs to believe the tires are ready. He needs to trust that the car ahead will not interfere. He needs to attack the first braking zone without wondering whether preparation has already damaged the attempt. The smallest doubt can cost confidence. And in qualifying, confidence is speed. That is why the final outlap is so important. It is not dead time. It is the foundation of the attack. Every acceleration zone builds tire energy. Every braking zone changes temperature. Every slow corner affects the pressure inside the tire. And every car around you forces a compromise. Go too slowly, and the tires may not wake up. Go too quickly, and they may lose their best condition before the flying lap reaches the final sector. It is like heating food in a microwave. Too little time, and the middle stays cold. Too much time, and the edges become too hot. The perfect result exists in a very narrow window. Red Bull needed to hit that window while also beating the clock. That is not impossible, but it is unforgiving. And the closer Verstappen moved toward the start line, the more the plan depended on instinct rather than comfort. There was no space to calmly adjust. No opportunity to return to the garage. No extra lap to repair the tire preparation. Everything was now happening in real time. And this is where one small strategic error can become a much bigger competitive loss. Because missing pole is not only about starting one position lower. It can change the entire race. The driver on pole controls the first moments. He chooses the racing line into the opening corner. He avoids some of the dirty air created by cars ahead. He can protect the tires instead of immediately attacking. He can force rivals to react. Lose that position, and the strategy changes before the race even starts. Suddenly, Red Bull may need to overtake on track. They may need to undercut through the pit stops. They may need to use more tire life while following another car. They may need Verstappen to take risks that would not have existed from pole. That is why the final qualifying decision carried so much weight. It was not just deciding one lap. It was potentially deciding how difficult the entire race would become. And now the pressure inside the Red Bull garage had a second layer. The first was immediate. Could Verstappen complete the final attempt? The second was much larger. What would happen if he could not? Because a team fighting at the front is not judged only by raw pace. It is judged by execution. When the car is fast enough for pole, anything less feels avoidable. That creates blame. Did the team wait too long? Was the track position wrong? Was the outlap too aggressive? Was the gap managed badly? Could they have sent the car earlier? Those questions become unavoidable when the final result does not match the car's potential. But there is an even deeper issue. Red Bull's rivals were watching. Every team studies these moments. They watch when a car leaves a garage. They watch how quickly it moves through the pit lane. They watch whether the driver is pushing on the preparation lap. They watch the gaps. They watch the clock. And when a leading team appears vulnerable, the others react. They can send their own cars at different times. They can place them into useful gaps. They can take advantage of the traffic created by someone else's mistake. Formula One qualifying is not 10 separate teams following 10 separate plans.